Nancy Ng, a woman who went missing during a yoga retreat to Guatemala last month. So let's talk about it. But be warned, these details will make your blood boil. If you need a full breakdown of the case, I posted an in-depth video about it last week, which you can go back and watch if you need to. The witness who was the last person to see Nancy alive has officially been publicly named. Her name is Christina Blazek, and she's a San Bernardino County public defender. Christina was on the same yoga retreat as Nancy, who disappeared on October 19th while kayaking on Lake Atitlán. It's now been 4 weeks since Nancy went missing, and Christina is only now speaking out for the first time through her attorney, Christopher Gardner. Nancy was last seen on video in her kayak on the lake, which was a little after 11 a.m. on the day she went missing. According to Christina, all 10 of the tourists went out with no safety training or life jackets, and once on the lake, they kind of all just went their separate ways. The water was reportedly becoming rough, so Christina started to head back to shore when she crossed paths with Nancy, who said she wanted to go swimming. According to Christina, she warned Nancy not to because the water was pretty rough and there was a good current, but Nancy reportedly jumped off her kayak anyway. Christina then says that she retrieved Nancy's kayak as it floated away, but she lost her grip. And after she got it for the second time, she turned around and Nancy was nowhere to be found. Christina then says that she immediately started screaming Nancy's name and screamed as much as she could, but she said that the water was pitch black and that she couldn't see anything, so she ultimately went back to shore for help. After she got to shore, she was greeted by the organizer of the retreat/yoga instructor, who has also since been publicly named. His name is Eddie Ramada, and according to both of them, once the distressed Christina got back to shore, he shielded her from onlookers and quickly rushed back to the hotel where all 10 of the tourists were staying. Christina allegedly told Guatemalan authorities what she saw, and they apparently told her that there was nothing that could be done and that Lake Atitlán is known for having people drown in it. This, of course, is everything that Christina told her attorney, who then released the statement. Nancy was then reported missing after hotel staff could not locate her. According to Lee Beal, the owner of the kayak rental company, the group was not scheduled to leave the next morning. But as we all know, within 12 hours of Nancy's disappearance, all 9 of the other tourists quickly checked out of the hotel without saying a word or talking to authorities. And they also did not pay for their excursion. But this is where things start to not really add up. After Nancy's family received a phone call from Eddie stating that she disappeared, they reached out to Christina, who again was the last person to see her alive, to see if she would talk to them and to help authorities locate Nancy. But Christina was silent. In fact, Nancy's family reached out to her multiple times, but she refused to say a word to them. Eddie reportedly told Nancy's family that Christina was too traumatized by the incident to speak with them. So they patiently waited for the police report, as that's all they could really do. And when they got it 5 days later, strangely enough, Christina's witness statement was nowhere in the official police report. There was actually not even one record of a single interview with Christina. Nancy's family and many others, including myself, are wondering why it took Christina so long to speak up and tell her side of what happened. Nancy's family has been begging her for information since the beginning, but for some reason it took her 4 weeks and getting an attorney to release any information. And according to the family, this is the first time that they're even hearing of this story. Nancy's family has since had to hire an independent search and rescue team called Black Wolf Helicopters, who have been the only ones to extensively search Lake Atitlán and the surrounding areas, as Guatemalan authorities called off the search after just 3 days. According to Chris Sharp of Black Wolf Helicopters, they've already searched roughly 95% of the lake and have also searched by land and air. However, since no one came forward and told authorities where Nancy even went into the lake, it's made finding her extremely hard and has severely hindered the investigation. According to Chris, Christina's statement about the water being pitch black is extremely valuable and would have been useful at the beginning of the investigation. They could have focused their search on the deepest part of the lake where the water is opaque, based on her description of the color change. But of course, this information only recently came to light 4 weeks later. Black Wolf Helicopters is hoping to bring in a sonar expert with this information to investigate deeper than 5 feet into the water. With the little information that witnesses are willing to give, time is of the essence to find Nancy. The fact that the only witness who last saw Nancy alive took 4 weeks to even just come forward is so bizarre to me. And it's just not fair to the family to have the only person who knows something just willingly not speak up when they need answers. I'd like to remind everyone of the GoFundMe in my bio for the family to help continue funding the search for Nancy. At this point, her family is questioning everything and they just want to bring Nancy home, as it's now been a month since she was last seen. There have been a lot of updates in the
challenges. The family remains determined to find her body.
We're still hoping that more information will come in and that we can find Nancy and bring her home.
It's hard to determine what actually happened when we're hearing a lot of conflicting information.
Just looking through her photos from this trip, we can tell that she was really happy and really having a good time. And that brings me some comfort.
Despite the challenges, the family remains determined to find her body. We're still hoping that more information will come in and that we can find Nancy and bring her home. Just looking through her photos from this trip, we can tell that she was really happy and really having a good time. And that brings me some comfort. Despite the challenges,
spiraled into a family's worst nightmare when an American woman vanishes while visiting Guatemala. Now, a desperate international search is underway to find her safe.
I'm concerned that it's been, about 3 weeks at this point, and there hasn't been any developments or any leads in it.
Back in October, 29-year-old Nancy Ng left her home in California to visit Guatemala. She'd attended a yoga retreat there the year before and was excited to participate again. She left the States on October 14th, heading for Lake Atitlán, a massive body of water in a volcanic crater located in the southwest part of the country. It was just days later, on October 19th, when she was last seen kayaking into the lake.
Mystery of the missing American tourist.
This is the lake in Guatemala where she was last seen.
Next, Inside Edition, she disappeared on a kayak adventure. Now Lisa Guerrero journeys to Guatemala. What happened to Nancy? A search for the truth.
Does this massive lake hold the missing clue?
Inside Edition investigates.
My biggest fear is never seeing her again, obviously. I just want her to come home. My biggest fear is never seeing her again, obviously. I just want her to come home. My fear is that no one comes forward and it becomes a cold case and people stop caring.
Last time Nancy Ng was seen, and the details behind her disappearance. This was the last time Nancy Ng was ever seen, and the details behind her disappearance are eerie and unexplainable. Nancy Ng is a 29-year-old American from Monterey Park, California. She was on a week-long vacation at Lake Atitlán in Guatemala. Nancy was last seen on October 19th, 2023. Her and a group of 9 other tourists were going out on the lake for a day of kayaking. It's reported that while kayaking, Nancy and one other lady had split from the group, and things only get weird from here. According to this woman, her and Nancy had paddled for another mile or so when Nancy decided to jump out of her kayak and drowned. The lady claims that she paddled back to the group, where they all went back to the hotel and notified management. A lot of suspicious behavior would follow. According to the hotel, all 9 had left the resort within 12 hours of the incident, completely leaving Guatemala. Almost all of them refused to speak to police. Nancy's family have hired a private team to search the lake, and they've covered 95% of it with no sign of Nancy. What do you think happened to Nancy?
About 11 in, the waves always come in about 11:30.
Elaine Beal owns the company that rented the kayak to Nancy and her 9 companions who were with her that day.
2 girls went further to the east.
She showed us on a map where she says Nancy and Christina Blazek, the last person to see her alive, were kayaking that day.
They kind of went out towards the middle of the lake, not the middle of the lake, and the accident occurred in the waters on the eastern shore. They pushed off at about 10:45, which was still calm. An hour later, the waves had started coming in.
I'm near the location where Nancy went missing. According to Christina, Nancy hopped out of the kayak to go for a swim. Christina says she paddled over to Nancy's kayak to hold on to it, to keep it from drifting off. But when she looked back to find Nancy, she was gone. Nancy stayed at this hotel. The kayak rental company is right next to the hotel. One question for the family remains: why wasn't Nancy wearing a life jacket? The lawyer for the witness says that they weren't offered life.
Hulu and wherever you stream. I'm Giovanna Lotta. Philip is off to. A haunting video of the last time a missing Monterey Park woman was seen in Guatemala. You're watching Eyewitness News at 11:30, live on ABC7, Hulu, and wherever you stream. I'm Giovanna Lotta. Philip is off today. The owners of the kayak company who rented the kayaks to the Yogi group are speaking out. ABC's Eva Pilgrim has their version of what happened after the excursion was over.
No one in the group was interested in talking to anybody. It was almost like immediately clamming up and we're not going to say anything.
This morning, the owners of the Guatemalan company who rented the kayak to a missing California woman now speaking out. Nancy Ng's family says this is the last known video of her taken October 19th and has now been provided to rescuers. The 29-year-old was on a yoga retreat when she went on a kayaking excursion in the remote area of Lake Atitlán and disappeared. According to Elaine and Lee Beal, who run Kayak Guatemala, this yoga group of 10 people set out on the water in the morning. Their employee taking this photo.
When the group returned, there were only 8 that returned. But we could see in the distance, of about 100 yards, 2 single kayaks.
Those 2 kayakers were Ng and another woman.
We watched them as they continued paddling until we lost sight of them.
A distress signal called in. The next thing Elaine Beal says she sees.
I witnessed the survivor being ushered up the steps with the yoga instructor. She was clearly distressed, and they didn't say a word to us.
But no sign of Nancy Ng. The Beals say they called the group's hotel the next morning because they hadn't been paid, only to learn they were gone.
I just don't understand that part of leaving within 8 hours of, 12 hours of the accident.
And ABC News has learned from Guatemala's Attorney General's office that they haven't been able to interview the woman who was with Nancy or the tour guide because the group left the country. They've requested international assistance to speak with them, but are still waiting to hear back. Meanwhile, Nancy Ng's family desperate for answers.
Please help us bring Nancy home.
Her family hiring a private search team trying to find her, searching by water and land. Now 3 weeks later, their only clue is an empty kayak and a growing mystery. Nancy Ng's family telling ABC News in a statement, "Our family has tried to contact the witness many times over the last 3 weeks, but she will not speak with us. The police report we received did not include a direct statement from her either. Her silence has hindered our search efforts and left us in the dark about what happened to Nancy. We don't know which nightmare scenario to believe."
Kayaks.
Those 2 kayakers were Ng.
When the group returned, there were only 8 that returned, but we could see in the distance, of about 100 yards, 2 single kayaks.
Those 2 kayakers were Ng and another woman.
We watched them as they continued paddling until we lost sight of them.
A distress signal called in. The next thing Elaine Beal says she sees.
I witnessed the survivor being ushered up the steps with the yoga instructor. She was clearly distressed, and they didn't say a word to us.
But no sign of Nancy Ng.
When the group returned, there were only 8 that returned, but we could see in the distance, of about 100 yards, 2 single kayaks.
Those 2 kayakers were Ng and another woman.
We watched them as they continued.
They'll say they called the group's hotel the next morning because they hadn't been paid, only to learn they were gone.
I just don't understand that part of leaving within 8 hours of, 12 hours of the accident.
And ABC News has learned from Guatemala's Attorney General's office that they haven't been able to interview the woman who was with Nancy or the tour guide because the group left the country. They've requested international assistance to speak with them, but are still waiting to hear back. Beal say they called the group's hotel. Ng's family telling ABC News in a statement, "Our family has tried to contact the witness many times over the last 3 weeks, but she will not speak with us. The police report we received did not include a direct statement from her either. Her silence has hindered our search efforts and left us in the dark about what happened to Nancy. We don't know which nightmare scenario to believe." Nancy Ng's family telling ABC News in a statement.
For those who have been keeping up to date with my videos and Ed's videos about the Nancy Ng case, Christine, Blazek's lawyer, released a statement and it just pisses me the fuck off. So in essence, her statement basically says, I didn't really know Nancy, I met her on the water, and to say that I didn't cooperate with the authorities is absolutely false. And she also claims that the family threatened her by saying, oh, if you don't tell us what's going to happen, we're going to make you talk. And I'm just so fucking pissed. She also said, oh, I've been so traumatized about the incident and that's why I didn't come forward all these weeks. You're traumatized? You're fucking traumatized? What about the family whose daughter is missing? And like Nikki, whose sister is missing? You don't think they're traumatized? Way to make this about you. And like the statement is just so fucking bullshit. What do you mean you just met Nancy out in the water when you went kayaking? Like you already spent a whole week with her on the retreat. There's a whole ass picture of you and your arm around her. Here it is in Ed's video. Like, oh, you just met Nancy on the water? I don't see you on the fucking water. And you'd already spent a whole week with her. Like, what do you mean? There's only 10 people on this retreat. You're saying you just met Nancy on the last day of the retreat? And not to mention, they had the same yoga instructor. I'm pretty sure they went to the same yoga classes. It's just such bullshit. And also just like, not only are you a shitty person, but you're a bad liar too. Like, these are things that are easily disproven. Also, the family released an email saying, this is not what we said. We didn't threaten her. They said, hey, we're really looking for information. If you could please tell us what happened. If we don't get more info, we're gonna have to pursue the matter. That's what they said. Nowhere in there is a fucking threat. To say that you've been fully cooperating with authorities is absolutely fucking false, because if that's the case, why are the FBI and Guatemalan authorities constantly still trying to reach you to get a statement? What it sounds like is that you talked to them once, very briefly, before you fucking hightailed it out of there. Because it takes fucking hours to get out of Lake Atitlán. So where would you have the time to sit down with the police and provide an actual statement? Because I don't see how you managed to squeeze that in between the time you were ushered off of the fucking shoreline and booked onto another flight. Like, you're not only just a terrible person, but a shitty liar, because all this stuff can be disproven and has been disproven. And I can't believe that. Like, I also can't believe that Yogi Eddie is a fucking, well, I can believe he's a narcissist. Because while the family's grieving and trying to ask for information, you're really more concerned about your fucking reputation and your view in the public? Like, are you serious? How self-absorbed do you have to be that after the family has been asking for information and begging you for information, that you come out and complain about how they're making you look bad? Their daughter is missing, and Christina and Eddie are making it about them and how they're the poor fucking victims in this. I just can't believe this. Like, the more that this case unfolds, it pisses me off more and more every single time. And it's just so infuriating because Nancy is still missing. She is still missing, and the family is still paying for this shit out of pocket. And the witnesses are just making it about them. Like, are you kidding me? I don't know, guys. I don't know. Please go support that GoFundMe. Please help this family at least try and bring Nancy home, no matter what state she's in or how we find her. Like, we have to find her and bring her home and give this family closure, because these witnesses fucking aren't. And I already know Blazek and her fucking attorney, her shitty attorney that got sued for sexual assault and had to pay like a $3 million settlement. Take that information as you will. I know that they're probably going to send like cease and desist letters to everyone that ever mentions their name, because she didn't want to speak up until people found out who she was and found out like what her job was. I think she deserves to be disbarred. I think she's a shitty person, a shitty liar, and deserves to be disbarred. I think Yogi Eddie should not be an instructor and should not be holding retreats, because he's clearly not responsible for the people that he takes on them. And if you go on a retreat with him and you disappear or something happens to you, this is what will happen. They don't fucking care about you. And this whole yoga community of like, oh, we're about peace and
answers, or the lack thereof, that the various agencies involved in the Nancy Ng case have been providing to the news media and to her family. As you might already know, the attorney for Christina Blazek, the last person to have seen Nancy on Lake Atitlán, he told ABC News as of November 15th that Christina already provided statements to Guatemalan police as well as to the FBI. In that same article, ABC News quoted the FBI as saying they're not aware of any foul play, that witnesses have been cooperative, and that they're offering resources to Guatemala in the search. On November 21st, NBC News reports that the U.S. State Department, which handles issues with foreign entities, confirmed that they have a missing citizen in Guatemala, but wouldn't share details due to privacy concerns. NBC also reiterated the FBI's claims that they're communicating with Guatemala and assisting Guatemala with the investigation. Based on all this, you would think that the FBI has secured a witness testimony from Christina Blazek and that they've shared her account with Guatemalan authorities, right? Because the Guatemalan prosecutor's office has made it very clear for the past month that they are relying on the US to obtain that testimony from the key witness. As of November 20th though, the most recent update on Nancy's GoFundMe campaign, her family says Guatemala still doesn't have a statement from Christina. It seems the Guatemalan prosecutor's office is the primary agency that the family is working with and getting their information from, which makes sense if they're the ones in charge of the investigation. But this agency doesn't have the information that the family is waiting on. They haven't received it from the witness. It doesn't seem like they've received it from the FBI, despite the witness and the FBI telling the news media that statements have been provided. I know a lot of the focus has been on Christina Blazek and the other witnesses not being forthcoming, but the longer this drags out, it seems like another issue keeping the family from getting answers is the way the agencies handling this investigation have been communicating, or should I say miscommunicating, and the way information has been shared or not shared. Hopefully the inconsistencies will get sorted out soon, and Nancy's family will get some clarity. One last thing to note, on November 22nd, Inside Edition aired a segment where they had just visited the police station of Santa Cruz La Laguna, the lakefront town closest to where Nancy disappeared, and the police there refused to comment on this case.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Eddie, you've been doing great coverage on this. I've been following this since the beginning. As a retreat host of retreats, especially I do water retreats in Croatia and in Mexico for a long time now. I also have a paddle company and a kayak company where I rent equipment. I teach yogis to teach and guide on water. It's a 4-day course and it covers safety. And this is not very many people are talking about this in this case. Now, the retreat center, first of all, any outfit that they work with, it's their responsibility to ensure that their clients are using adventure companies that are certified, that do it right. In this day and age, with everybody jumping on the bandwagon of retreats, there's so many charlatans. Let's not even mention this yogi retreat host, Yogi Eddie. I'm going to find out the studio that he teaches at because it's unconscionable what every participant in this yoga retreat did. And they call themselves yogis. This is the day and age of the fucking charlatan in this industry. So many people just, and there's definitely a nefarious part of this entire story with Nancy, but the fact that the kayak company, I tried to look, I didn't see anybody with a life jacket, first of all. 10 people, whether on open water or an enclosed lake like Lake Atitlán, the fact that there was no guide is right there, red flag. Now, whether these people sign these charlatans get these waivers that they're indemnified of anything, but they don't take the responsibility of people's lives on water seriously. So this is the case where the retreat center is responsible, the yoga host is responsible, and the kayak company is responsible. But to this Christina Resnick, I think is her name, fucking shame on you. Who are you? You call yourself a yogi? Really? Like, you left a person on the water, and the fact that there was no sign out process of each piece of equipment returned to the kayak company and then signed off, nothing. And then hours later reporting that she's gone or missing and everybody leaves a day earlier on this trip. Just so many red flags. And it gives a really bad name to retreat hosts and yoga teachers who certify and who do the work and take it seriously, that you have people's lives in your hands. And, not understanding currents and weather changes, and not having the proper equipment, and using companies that obviously are just there. So many hotels buy kayaks and paddleboards without any knowledge of safety. It's unconscionable, and I'm really sad for this family. Yeah, I'm really sad for this family. I hope they find her and bring her home. At least, in whatever condition this may be. But, this is just safe.
Christina Blazek has yet to provide the exact coordinates where she last saw Nancy. You can imagine how incredibly difficult that makes the search for the team. They don't even know where to start. I need everyone to focus on that. Everyone's been focusing on the interview given by the lawyer, and he does not provide one very crucial piece of information. Where is the last place Christina saw Nancy, and why did she not join a rescue team to immediately go out there and try to find her? As an attorney, she knows that the first 72 hours are crucial. And if that were me, I would be leading the search party. I wouldn't be on a plane going back home. Where is the last place Christina saw her?
He says his client did everything she could to save Nancy's life.
She went to the police station. She gave a full statement.
It's heartless. It doesn't seem ethical. It doesn't seem human to withhold information from what she seems to be claiming is an accident.
The man who organized the yoga retreat is also speaking out. Eddie Ramada was on
anger from the family of the American woman who died kayaking during a yoga retreat in Guatemala. They say they've gotten little information and are desperate to speak with those on the retreat. And now 2 of them are breaking their silence.
The last person to see missing California tourist Nancy Ng alive is finally speaking out. Christina Blazek was on another kayak during the yoga retreat in Guatemala when Nancy apparently drowned. Now Blazek, a public defender, is breaking her silence through her attorney, Christopher Gardner.
What happened to Nancy Ng? Miss Ng wanted to go a little bit further out into the lake.
He says Nancy wanted to go for a swim.
My client told her, I'm not really comfortable with that. She wasn't going to get in, and she recommended that Miss Ng did not get in. But she said she really wanted to, and she got in.
Gardner says when his client turned her back, Nancy Ng had disappeared underwater. She wasn't wearing a life jacket.
Did Christina scream for help? Did she try to get assistance? She screamed for Miss Ng. She was trying to find her. It was black under there. It was dark. She recognized fairly quickly that Miss Ng was not here. She's not coming back. She needed to get in and get help.
He says his client did everything she could to save Nancy's life.
She got into shore as quickly as she could, and she told people that she's out there, and she went underwater out there. She went to the police station. She gave a full statement.
But Nancy's sister Nikki says in the 4 weeks since the tragedy, she has yet to hear a word from Blazek.
It's heartless. It doesn't seem ethical. It doesn't seem human to withhold information from what she seems to be claiming is an accident.
The man who organized the yoga retreat is also speaking out. Eddie Ramada was on a kayak that day. He tells Inside Edition, I have been in clear communication with Nancy's family and the authorities in Guatemala since the very beginning. He says he also spoke to the FBI. Today he claims he was fired because his yoga studio says the story has gotten too hot.
It bothers me that they can move on without giving my family any closure.
Nancy Ng's kayak was recovered, but her body has not been found.